Hello guys, in this video I'll be showing you on how to update a record in or using MySQL or MariaDB and PHP. So let's start. So this is our list_students.php. So it shows the different records that we added, and now let's try to modify this record by adding a edit module. Okay, so to start, let's add a column here. Then we'll name it as action. And then under or here we'll be adding another column also. And then we'll be naming it as edit. And then let's try to check the output. So we have a edit text here. So in here we'll be adding a link so that when a user click the edit this link, it will redirect the user to a form that the user can modify a certain record. Okay, so we'll be adding a hyperlink href single quote and then anchor tag. So in here we'll be creating a file which is edit.php, and then we'll be passing the variable or the value of the ID. So this will serve as our reference in editing the record. ID. Then let's try to put it in here. Okay, so be replacing that into ID, and then F5. Okay, so we have an error here, expecting dash or identifier. So let's check what's the problem. Okay, so maybe I think we need to change this part into this one. Okay, and then F5. Okay, so there's no error. And then let's try if we are getting the ID of this record. So click. So in our URL we can see that we are able to pass the ID, which is 17. This will serve as our basis in editing the record. So we need to create this file. So edit.php. Actually, all we need to do is to save as this file, the add new record. Okay, let's just save as or copy. But in this video, we'll just save as. We'll be using the save as, and then paste the edit.php. Okay, and based on the ID, we'll be making an SQL statement here under the body. And then so we'll be opening a PHP script, and then we'll be using this statement, the select statement. Okay, here or maybe here. Just copy that and we'll be placing it inside. So what we are going to do is we'll retrieve the record based on the ID. Then we will fill in the different text boxes. So copy, then paste. But we will not use the while statement since we'll just retrieve one record. And then close. And then we need to close the try, and then also close another try catch statement. Then in here we'll be using the Pdo exception. let's check. Pdo Exception, variable E, then variable E, then we'll be displaying echo, or let's use the exit or the die statement, die, then okay, an error has been occurred. Okay, copy, paste, and copy this one. Okay, we'll just remove that. Then in here we'll be defining a variable for the ID, then for the name, comma, for the course, for the address, then for the sex. Okay, and then okay, so we'll be adding a parameter here, which is ID is equal to, then record ID. So we'll be binding the ID that we pass using the URL, so using this record ID. So in here we'll be defining a variable which is values, or value, since only one parameter that will be bind, so array, and then record ID, okay, and then equal sign greater than, then the value for the value of the ID. So we'll just use the request ID directly here, or here you can use the, or yes, here. Okay, so request and then ID. Okay, so this is the variable that we transfer from the list students to the edit.php. So we'll be retrieving the record, and then in here we'll be copying this one, and of course we'll be assigning the value of the different fields in our variable, empty variable. Okay, then ID. So we'll just copy this one, copy, copy, copy. So next is, okay, just copy this one. So for the sex, since the variable is the same with the column name or the field name, and then we'll be assigning this variable to our fields. Okay, so we'll be adding a attribute which is value for the input type, and then PHP script, then echo the variable, okay, which is name, and then we'll be copying this one to the different input fields, and then for this one is address. For the sex, we have a different way to select the selected or the value of the sex, so we'll just show it later on. For the meantime, for the course, so the value of the course is of course. Then we have the submit. And then if you are wondering what will be the value of, or where are we going to store temporarily the value for the ID, since that will serve as our basis in editing the record. So we have a form elements called input type hidden. So this one is not visible to the eye of the user. Okay, it is behind, or it is hidden. Then we'll name it as ID. And then for the value, so I'll just paste this one and then ID. So let's check the output. Okay, so we're gonna click this link to edit the record, which is DADSA or dummy data. Then edit. So we have a syntax error at line 130. So at line 130. Okay, so maybe we miss. Okay, so we forgot to end something here. Okay, so we need to look for that. Okay, everything is fine. Okay, so a while ago everything is fine. So for the meantime, we'll rename it as edit record or edit record. Then we forgot something. Where's the partner of this? Okay, so I think, okay, so we don't have a closing brace here, partner of the try. So refresh. Okay, so we have undefined variable con, because this one, we'll just move this one outside so that, okay, it will be available not just in this function, okay, or not just in this statement, but in general, okay, in the whole part of the file. Okay, so an error has been occurred, so we have a problem with. Okay, so we need to trace the problem. So we have record ID. Let's try to remove the spaces. Sometimes causes an error, so we still have a problem. Okay, so maybe, okay, so we forgot to place this inside of the execute statement, then F5. Okay, so we have this kind of output. So we'll be replacing this into edit record so that it will match on what we are doing. So edit record. So okay, so let's try to pre-select the sex of the record based on the, so based on the sex that we specified a while ago when we add the record. So let's pre-select this one. Then let's go to our code. So in here, we'll be making a ternary operator, which is, okay, so echo. So once, if the sex of the student is male, it will be pre-selected. Okay, so let's use the ternary operator. Okay, we'll be using the ternary operator, and then in here we'll be using the variable x, and we'll be comparing it into 1. So if the sex is, if sex is equal to 1, then we will display, we'll be printing, or we'll be adding an attribute which is selected is equal to selected. Okay, and then we'll be copying this one and we'll be placing it here. Then we'll just change it into 2. If the sex is equal to 2, which is female, then female will be pre-selected. Then F5. So we have an error, a missing parenthesis on line 113. So just check. Okay, we need to complete this one. We'll be printing empty. Okay, then let's refresh. Okay, so let's try again. Click this one. Okay, mail. Then this one, mail again, mail. This one is empty, so there are no records that we added here. We added an empty records a while ago, or in our previous video. So in here we'll be modifying this record. So edit. So let's modify the source code above. So we added another form elements, which is ID. So we'll be adding in the top of our code. So we'll be adding an ID here that will serve as our basis in modifying the record. So we'll be changing it into txt ID, or I'll just retain that as an ID. So ID, and then ID. So in here we'll be modifying the SQL statement. Instead of insert, we'll be changing that into update, and then update table student set name is equal to, and then we'll be removing this one, equal sign for the name, equal sign name, equal sign address, and equal sign sex, the value for the sex and the value for the course. Then we'll be adding a where statement where ID is equal to record ID. So we'll be adding a parameter, which is the record ID in here. Okay, comma, then double quote, and then the variable ID. Okay, so update TBL student set name is equal to name, address equal to address, sex is equal to sex, course is equal to course, where ID is equal to record ID, which is the ID that we stored in form element, which is the hidden input type. Okay, so let's check our source code. So it is correct. So let's try that. So we'll be changing this into, for example, Peter Parker. Okay, the address of Peter Parker, let's say New York, and then of course mail, and the course of Peter Parker is BSCS, Computer Science. And then let's save. Okay, save. Okay, our record has been saved. Then okay, so we have a problem here. Instead of editing the record, it added a new record. So we have a problem on our statement. Okay, update table student. So let's try again. Okay, in this one we will be using the Bruce Wayne, and then Gotham. The address is Gotham, mail, and its course is BSIT. Let's try again. Why it is adding instead of updating the record? Save. Okay, so that's the problem. Okay, so let's check. Okay, so we forgot to modify. That's the problem. We forgot to modify this, the action. Okay, the action attribute of the form. Instead of add new record, it should be edit. Okay, so that's the problem. So we need to double check that. Okay, be careful on this. And then let's try again. 5, and I do not have any hero anymore. Let's say John Jones, example. Okay, Washington. Address is Washington. Mail, and then course is BSIT again. Then let's save. Okay, so we successfully modified the first record into John Jones, Washington, and the sex is male, course is BSIT. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching. God bless.